Got a sneak peek on what's coming up soon, but this is prime reason why someone needs to focus on either ordering parts way ahead of time or working on one project at once. So we finished up our front disc conversion a couple of weeks ago, or a couple days ago, I should say. And then worked on the rear drums. These things were seized up, so had to soak these guys in penetrant for a couple of days. Finally had to make a puller to get those off. Come to find out, needed brake hardware that didn't match the front, so we couldn't steal anything of any of the old stuff off the front for the rear. So waiting on that stuff to show up. So the car's up in the air, can't move it until I get the brakes on the rear brakes finished. So this thing's kind of stuck where it sets. Started ripping apart engine transmission to get this power washed in the meantime. Start getting this thing cleaned up. So we're working on it, halfway through it. Got parts coming for it as well. Dash is ripped apart as well. So we were waiting on the paint for the dash to harden up. So that's what we're gonna focus on this week. And I'll see if we can knock that out quick. We painted this guy a couple weeks ago. We're gonna see what we can do quick to get some shine polished out of this cheapo spray paint. And then we're gonna start kind of throwing some of the front accessories and whatnot into this thing, get it halfway cleaned up. That way we can put that behind us and then start focusing on some other stuff. Nothing around here is halfway labeled decent. There's 15,000 parts going around. So trying to halfway prioritize what we need to do and kind of keep the ball rolling, but that's what we're gonna focus on quick, see if we can get that done and then move on to some other stuff. We're gonna quick revisit the dash here for a few minutes. So as you guys saw a couple weeks ago, we quick spray painted this black up top here and this gray insert here in the middle. You guys can check out that video to see what kind of paint we use, but I did go over the top of this thing with some clear lacquer to add a little hardness to the paint. And this was a quick job done kind of after the fact, so it is full of trash. There's not a whole lot of reflective quality to it. It's got a little bit of a sheen, but nothing too shiny. So I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do with minimal tools and material to get this thing to a mirror finish in a few minutes. Okay, so I got a piece of tape here so we can contrast what the old and the new is gonna look like. So first I'm just gonna hit this thing with some glass cleaner quick to get all the dust out of it. We'll wipe it down, and then we're gonna wet sand this thing with, I've got 2000 grit on a little pad here. 2500 would probably be adequate. We're gonna start with 2000 and just see where that ends us up. This thing has a little bit of orange peel to it, and I'm not as worried about getting that out. I'm just trying to get some of the shine back to it. So we're just gonna kind of go through here and knock this down quick. And I'm gonna grab a softer sponge to hit this little contour down here because it's just a flat block that I've got. You want to be easy up here on these harder edges that you don't cut through your fresh paint. And then as we are wet sanding here, I'm just going to kind of wipe this thing clean and I'll re-wet it as we go. So this is a tighter area, so I've just got a couple different little sponges just to try to not leave any big finger marks in this through the paper. So we'll see what that looks like. I'm going to kind of wipe this dry. And you can see I've kind of started cutting into the paint a little bit. We'll get this pretty dry, and there's going to be a big haze to it. And if your paint is thick enough, now you could go through and cut down and eliminate all your orange peel. I'm probably not going to do that here. This is not really what I'm trying to achieve. I just want a little bit of a shine to this thing. So as you can see, there's plenty of orange peel left. And if you wanted to, you could probably go down deep enough to eliminate all these little highs and lows. But we're not going to go that far. I just want to get really just the dust nibs and whatnot knocked down, and then we're going to start cutting and buffing this to get some shine brought back out in it. So after that's pretty well knocked down, I've just got a clean microfiber cloth here, and I'm going to go with some heavier cut compound. And you can use this on a pad on a drill or a little polishing gun if you've got one. But for this little small section here, you can do it by hand. And this will actually leave swirled sanding scratches. So you're going to want to go back with the next step up polish or cutting compound to try to eliminate all that. So you can see we're also taking off yet again more of the paint. So I'm going to wet this thing one more time, one little spot, and then we'll hit it one more time. And if your paint did not have all the dust nibs and whatnot that mine did, you probably could skip the step for the sandpaper. That was just to knock a bunch of the crud out of it. And a person could spend as much time as they want to doing this, and short of cutting through the paint, the more time you spend on it, the better result you're going to get in terms of cutting through a lot of this orange peel. And so I'm going to call it good at that. I'm going to take a clean side of this towel and try to wipe all that off so we can see we're already getting to a little bit deeper color and some shine. It's only going to get better from here. So that was a heavy cut compound. We're going to jump up to about a midway cut. More of a polishing compound versus a cutting compound. Same thing, I'm just gonna pick a clean section of this cloth here. We're gonna go over this and be sure we eliminate all the sanding scratches that the heavy cut compound left. We're still cutting away a little bit. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna wet one more little section. Had I painted this dash before I painted the car, probably could have achieved a little bit better initial paint job if we would have masked everything appropriately and got in here with the actual paint gun and sprayed this thing with some real paint. But I kind of had this in mind that this was what I was going to do prior to painting the car, so that's kind of what we stuck with. All right, so I'm going to call it good at that for my cutting compound. Just going to kind of burnish this thing off, try to clean it real quick. And then I'm going to go over the top of this thing with just some nice wax. And by nice, that's like the cheapest stuff you can buy at the store. We'll just wax this like you would a car. Let this kind of haze up a little bit, and then we'll take a clean section of this thing and cut it back off. All right, so I'm gonna let that be that, and I'm gonna wipe this off. We'll see how tight I got up against the tape. It's kind of peeling up a little bit. Couple small scratches in through here. I could probably take some of that medium compound and cut those out. But this will give us a start, kind of show you what we're gonna do with this whole thing. I'm gonna do this little section here for demonstration, and we're gonna go through this and do the entire dash here and get this thing shining up. All right, we pulled the tape and here you have it. Huge difference. As you can see, this is not quite perfect. A little bit of orange peel still in it. Got a couple little scratches in through here, but quite the reflective change. This would be a before, and this would be an after. So we're gonna go through, do the whole dash quick. Probably gonna go back and hit this one a little bit more on these couple of corners here that we kind of missed, but not bad for some just nothing special spray paint and a little bit of elbow grease. This will be perfectly well served for this project. Okay, so we got this dash shined up about as decent as I think I'm going to get it. So for the time being, we're going to go ahead and start throwing this gauge cluster and all these little accessories back in quick. I've got about 15 other little projects going. I'm ready to get these parts up and out of the way so we can move on with some other stuff. So radio is not functional. I have polished it up a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and throw it back in this hole just to fill that spot. If we decide we need to go back with a radio at a later date, we can throw something up here in a glove box. And then gauge cluster itself, I think I'm probably going to have to pull it again at a later date. I know a handful of these bulbs are burnt out, and I'm not going to go as far as putting a battery or going through and testing these things. I don't have any replacements with me for the time being, so we're just going to get this thrown back in. It's super easy to pull out, so we'll just get it stuck in here as a placeholder, and then when it gets to a point where everything's going to be functional, we can kind of get back here and pop some of these bulbs in as needed. And then same thing with the AC controls here. There's a handful of little cables that go in through here that work a couple of these little ducts. I could show you, like here's one of them here. Kind of snakes around and hooks into the little AC control kind of cluster or vent control cluster. It's all little mechanical linkages and cables and mechanisms and whatnot. Half of them are seized up. So I'm not quite ready to dive off into that yet. I've got a couple other things blown apart that I want to get finished up. So I'm probably just going to halfway stick this back into place, and then we can crawl up under here and see what we need to do to get some of these little cables and whatnot freed back up. But just from an aesthetic standpoint, I want to get all these little miscellaneous pieces that we've polished up and painted, bolted back to the car. That way they're not laying around getting kind of dinged up. So that's what we're going to work on quick. Shouldn't take too long, and then hopefully we can call that a wrap for the dash here. Okay, so I went ahead and snugged the instrument cluster in all the way. Wasn't any big deal, and I can actually get to the back side of this thing to replace some bulbs without having to pull it forward. So I went ahead and fully hooked this thing up, so this thing should not come back out, fingers crossed. So I'm going to drop this little heat and air mechanism back in. And like I mentioned earlier, where all the little cables hook up to the back of it, I'm not going to hook any of that up yet because I'm not sure what all I'm going to leave functional on this thing in terms of all the air flappers. It's got these fresh air tubes coming in, and I may or may not utilize those. Have not really decided yet. So for the time being, I'm just going to drop this guy in, and with any luck, I might be able to get back here without pulling this thing back out to hook these guys up when we either decide to replace the cables or disable a couple things if that's the route we go. So I'm going to try to cobble back here and get this thing slipped in. It was kind of a booger to get out if I remember correctly. So I just jumped in here and went ahead and threw all the rest of the stuff in. Now I should have thought ahead and put all these knobs and whatnot on prior to putting this little heater control in, but it's okay. It made it a little more difficult, but no big deal. So I still got to put my little dash knob on. We're gonna see if we can make a little heater control knob here for the blower speed. We'll see how that turns out. But other than that, this thing is looking pretty stinking slick. It is not quite perfect anywhere, but it is way better than it was. Tried to polish up some of this stainless. It came out a little bit better. A couple little dents in it here and there, but nothing too horrible. This thing shines way better than it did when we first sprayed it. So was able to polish a lot of that reflection out. So this thing should be pretty close to being wrapped up. I went ahead and I don't have keys to this car, so I went ahead and pulled the little tumbler out of the ignition. So I'll have to order a lock set, and then we'll just pop that guy back in. But I wanted to go ahead and have that wrapped up. Same thing with the horn. This thing is not all the way on here tight. Just wanted to go ahead and get all this thing halfway put back together so my parts are not laying around. And then if we have to pop this thing back off to do the windshield so we're not kind of working around it, we can do that. So that's pretty well that. We're going to hop inside quick and see what we can come up with for a little heater knob and then go from there. We're going to get creative here and try to make our own little heater knob that we're missing. So this guy's cooking. We got 3% done, probably 20 minutes or so, and this thing should be knocked out. This isn't going to be an exact match to the factory, but it's pretty close, I believe. So if this thing works out, we'll pop it off here, freshen it up with some paint and stick it on. So bring it back here in a couple minutes and this thing's a little bit farther along and show you what this is looking like. Slowly but surely, we are almost 70%, so a couple more minutes, this thing should be wrapped up. We'll carry it outside and see what it turned out like. Okay, so we got our 3D printed knob installed. Worked out just fine. It's not a perfect match to factory, but it'll certainly serve its purpose, and best part about it, it was absolutely free, so can't beat that. I think it pretty well gets us close to being done with the dash. I just needed to throw this little knob on. Got to dig it out of the box and these little end caps, but I think that's pretty well going to wrap us up for where we're at. So we're going to clean up a bunch of this mess and start moving on to some other stuff. So I think that's going to do it for this episode. I have no idea what we're going to work on next week. We'll figure it out when parts start showing up. I got engine laying here, brake stuff, a million other things laying around. So we'll figure out what we're going to do next. Stay tuned for updates. Thanks for watching.